Most likely you've probably done an interview before, whether that be for your school or sixth form or university, or maybe you've done it for a volunteering role, or even something like a Saturday job at Greg's. Most likely you've done an interview before. However, most likely you haven't done a virtual interview, right? Because virtual interviews, they're quite a relatively new thing. And on top of that, they're only really done by companies hiring for like professional roles such as apprenticeships and graduate schemes. So although you might have practice and you know how to do real interviews, you don't know how to do virtual interviews, and these can actually be quite different. So in this video, I'm going to be explaining exactly what virtual interviews are, and then I'm going to be giving you the strategy to succeed in your virtual interview. Welcome to the Virtual Interviews Full Guide. So when are you going to get given a virtual interview stage during your application process to an apprenticeship or to a graduate scheme? And usually it's going to be in stage 2. So the first stage is the online application where you put in your details, CV and cover letters. And then stage 2 can be either, to be honest, it can be both. So it's virtual interview and or online testing. That's stage 2. And then stage 3 is the assessment centre. So it comes between the online application and the assessment centre. So after you put in your online application, you're going to get an email which invites you to the next stage if you're successful. And this will be an email link, and it's going to say something like, you have 5 days to complete this, all right? And if I'm going to be completely honest, I think 5 days is actually quite a lot compared to normal. Like normally companies can put things like 3 days. So you need to complete this within 3 days. So that means if they send it on a Friday, you don't check your emails Saturday and Sunday, and then you don't do it on Monday, you've missed it. And this is like a non-negotiable date basically. If they say do it within 3 days, you have to do it within 3 days or you get automatically rejected. So the first thing I would say is, after you send in your online application, you need to make sure basically every single day you're checking your email, because you never know when your invitation to stage 2 is going to come. It could come on any day and it's going to have something ridiculous like complete within 2 days, complete within 3 days or 4 days, right? So you basically need to make sure you're checking your email constantly after you've done the online application to make sure that you don't miss out on your invite to stage 2. And as I said earlier, this stage 2 can be a virtual interview, or it can be online testing, or it can actually be both. Okay, so how does a virtual interview work? Basically, what it means is you're basically doing an interview on your own, and it's going to get recorded, and then at a later date, someone else is going to watch the recording. The recruiter's going to watch the recording and basically assess you like that. That's what it means by virtual. So by virtual, it doesn't mean like you're over Teams or over Zoom with the recruiters. No, it means like the recruiters aren't anywhere to be seen. It's literally gonna be text on the screen. You reply to it, the webcam records your video, and then like at a later date, in a few days, in a few weeks, the recruiter's basically gonna look through at the same time all these different videos of the candidates that have submitted. And the structure is actually quite different to an interview, because with an interview, you get asked the question, you answer the question. You get asked the question, you answer the question, right? Virtual interview is actually quite different. So what's gonna happen is, on screen, the text is going to pop up saying the question, and it usually gives you about a minute of preparation time. So that's one big difference between an interview and a virtual interview, is you're going to get about a minute of preparation time to think about what you want to say, prepare your answer, get ready for doing it. And then once that's minutes over, it's then going to go to the real question. It's going to start recording, and you basically have about 3 minutes to answer. So then when you're done preparing, you can say you've only spent 20 seconds preparing, you can click just go to the question, it'll start, or you can use the full minute, and then after a minute it's basically going to start recording your video, and you basically have to give your answer, and there'll be a maximum time limit, maybe like 3 minutes, where it'll be recording for, and you give your answer. If you do the whole 3 minutes, then it'll just stop recording automatically. Or if you finish early at like 2 minutes, you can press it to stop recording. And once you've done that first recording, it's then going to ask you if you want to re-record. So that's the thing about virtual interviews. You get a second chance at it. Whereas in a real interview, you have to just do it and that's that. With a virtual interview, you get the chance to re-record, and quite often you can actually watch your answer back. So you could do the first recording, watch your answer back, realize it wasn't very good, and then actually record it a second time. And then once you finish that question, you can usually like pause, and then you'll be able to press when you want the next question, and then it'll show you the next question, give you the minute or so of preparation, and then go into recording the next one. So that's how it works. It's basically, you could sort of think of it as an interview, but like they're making it sort of easier for you, because you're getting preparation time and you're getting extra tries, but more on that later when I get to the strategy. So the key interview questions, it's actually quite similar to a interview in the actual like questions themselves. So usually the first question is going to be a motivation question. So why do you want this degree apprenticeship? Why do you want this subject? Why do you want to work for this company? Why do you want to have a degree apprenticeship at this company? Why do you want a degree apprenticeship in general, right? So that's usually the first question. And then the rest of the questions are stuff like scenarios. So give me a time you worked as a team. Give me a time where you were challenged by something and had to overcome it. All sorts of those questions, like give me a time you're a leader. It's basically quite similar to interview questions. One thing I would say though is that virtual interview questions can be a bit more rogue, okay? Because in an interview, to be honest, 99% of the time, the questions are all standard. They're all the same in an interview. But in a virtual interview, I'd just be wary that they can sometimes throw in some rogue ones. But to be honest, I think, first of all, just make sure you know your motivation, why you want the role, you know how you're going to answer that. Second of all, know your scenarios for like working as a team, working as a leader. And third of all, I would say maybe like 10 minutes before you do it, just Google like common interview questions, and you'll just see loads of interview questions, and it'll just get you sort of in the mindset, it'll get you prepared, and practice like that's really good, going and looking at common interview questions, because it's not just about like preparing the exact questions, it's about getting the skill of interviewing. So if you can go onto these common websites, 20 common interview questions, and you can like practice with them, look at it and think of an answer in your head, then basically it means when you get a rogue interview question in the virtual interview, you're going to have that skill of being able to come up with something on the spot. So I would just bear in mind that virtual interview questions can be a bit rogue, a bit weirder than normal interview questions. However, just going and searching like common interview questions and getting some random questions on the internet is a good way to practice that skill of being faced with an unexpected question. In terms of length, virtual interviews are really not that long. With your normal interviews in your assessment centres, they can be up to like 45 minutes long. To be honest, I think the longest one I had was about an hour and a half, like just of an interview. It was a very long interview. Normally it can be like 45 minutes. You got like 20 plus questions. They're doing all sorts. With a virtual interview, 9 times out of 10, you're just going to get 5 questions. And there's a simple reason for this, because when you get to the assessment centre, there's much less people left in the process, so they can do really long interviews, and that's not too bad because there's only a few people. But in stage 2, when you're at the virtual interview process, there's still loads and loads of people left in, so they couldn't give everyone hour-long interviews because they just don't have the time. The recruiter wouldn't be able to go through hundreds and hundreds of 1-hour interviews. However, if they just do 5 questions and it takes like 15 minutes, that's much more manageable. The recruiter going through like 15-minute video recordings. That's something to bear in mind, that a virtual interview is really quite short. It's only 5 questions compared to like the assessment centre interview, which can be much longer. Like, as I say, my longest one was an hour and a half. Okay, so now you know how you're going to get invited to the virtual interview. You know what a virtual interview is and what it entails. You know some common questions that are going to get asked. I'm going to go into the strategy of how to succeed in your virtual interview. And there's actually 2 strategies here, okay? So there's sort of the normal standard strategy that I think a lot of people do, and I'll go over that first. And then the second strategy is going to be the strategy that I personally think is better. So let me just go with the standard strategy first, okay? And the standard strategy is basically you want to optimize basically the chances you've got. You want to like utilize the chances they're giving you. So that basically means you want to make sure that in your 1-minute preparation, you spend your full 1 minute preparing, writing down key points, like keynotes, like sort of don't like write it word for word, obviously you won't have time and that just wouldn't work, but like sort of like chapter headings of sort of the direction you want to go in your like 3-minute answer or whatever it is. And then you can like refer down to those during your answer in case you like sort of forget where you're going. But like utilize that full minute, think about where you want to go, maybe practice a few of the sentences in your head and basically use that full minute. And then the first time it comes around, you're basically going to use it as a practice round. So the first 3 minutes you use a practice round, see where you can improve. Okay, so I hadn't finished by the time the timer stopped. In my second attempt, I'm going to make sure that I go through things faster. I'm going to skip out this bit. And you can basically use it as a practice run. And then when it comes to the second attempt, you redo, and then you basically do it better in your second attempt because you've had time to practice it and had loads of time to think about it, and then you're going to perform better. So that's like the first strategy that I think a lot of people do. It's a standard strategy, and I think I guess it does the job. I personally think there's a better strategy to do this, but I think it's a much bolder strategy. It requires a lot more confidence, and I'd say it's more difficult, I guess, to pull off, but I think it's going to give you better results if you do this strategy. So if you're interested in this strategy, keep watching, but if you're happy with that first strategy, then go to this timestamp where I continue with the rest of the video. So there's probably like 10% of people left watching this section because most people are happy with that first strategy, but I personally think this is the better strategy, this strategy I'm going to give you now. The first thing, okay, that I would change is I would not use the full minute for preparation, right? I would basically, normally when I'm doing this, I do about 10-20 seconds of preparation. And now you're thinking, how is this a better strategy? Surely it's going to be better when you've prepared for longer. And no, I don't really think so. I think 10-20 seconds, whatever it may be, is a better preparation than a minute. And that sounds counterintuitive, but let me explain why I think that is. So I think when you see the question come up and you're in this 1 minute preparation time, I think the main thing you really just need to do is basically just make like 5 headings, like 5 lines of paper, 1 word on each. That's all you need, 5 words. So if the question was, give me a time when you were a leader, what I would write down is 5 words. So D of E, storm, scared, lead, success, right? That's just like 5 headings you put down. Literally takes you 10 seconds to write that. And then it basically gives you your answers. So we were on D of E and there was a storm and people in my group started getting scared, but I started taking initiative, become the leader. I planned like a route to the solution of how we could get back to the footpath during the storm when it was all foggy, and I kept morale high. And in the end, because I'd done that, we basically completed our gold expedition and we were a success, right? So you'd lengthen that out to 3 minutes. But from those 5 words, I basically just planned out my whole answer, right? And with the previous strategy, you'd write down those headings, and then for the next 40-50 seconds, you'd basically start practicing it in your head. Personally, I don't think you should do that, right? Because I think, to be honest, in that last 40 seconds, you're not really going to be practicing anything useful. To be honest, most likely you're going to be sitting there in those last 40 seconds, basically thinking, okay, I don't really know what to say. Okay, there's 35 seconds left. Let me just think. So how should I start it? Should I started talking about, okay, 25 seconds, 20 seconds, okay, 15 seconds, right? Okay, so if I mention this, but do I mention that 10 seconds? But I'm thinking, should I mention the bit where we had to change this direction, or 5 seconds, like 3, so basically, when we were, I'm exaggerating, right? It's not gonna be that bad, but personally, that's how I think it goes. You can have like 10-20 seconds, you see the question, 10 seconds of notes, you're fired, you're like, yeah, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do this, boom, let's go. That's the strategy I use, just 10 seconds and then straight into it, right? Whereas, if you get all these, you're going to get loads, the moment you see the question, right, you can get loads and loads of thoughts in your head, like, I could say this, say this, say this, say this, if you've prepared properly. If you haven't prepared properly, then I know what you're going to do. But if you've prepared properly, you've done the common interview questions, right, you've got ideas for how to answer questions. The moment that question pops up on screen, you're going to be thinking, right, let's do this, let's do this, let's do this, I'm going to do this. You're going to quickly write down those 5 notes, da-da-da-da-da-da-da. That is the best time to start, right? When your brain is fully fired, you're in flow state, okay? If you haven't watched my video, A Lesson in Interviews, Rituals and Flow State, I definitely recommend you check that out, because flow state is basically the best way of being successful in a job interview. If you can get into flow state during a job interview, it's the easiest thing ever, right? For you doing flow state, for you as a one person in flow state, you beat 99 other candidates who aren't in flow state. Like when you're in flow state, it's so easy. So if you don't know what flow state is, watch that video or just give flow state a Google, find out what it is. Flow state is the best way of getting through your interviews, right? So if you literally see those 5 questions, you're like, yeah, I'm going to do this, let's go. Start going into the answer. You're going to give a really good answer, really passionate answer, covers everything. And here's the thing, let me just jump something in here. I said that most of the time, these virtual interviews give you 3 minutes to answer the question, right? That seems like a lot. You're like, how am I talking for 3 minutes about me being the captain of the football team? Like, what do I say? I'm a captain and I lead the team. How are you stretching that out for 3 minutes, right? If you're not in flow state, that is difficult. I will give you that. If you're not in flow state, talking for 3 minutes about one thing is difficult. However, if you are in flow state, 3 minutes is so easy. You literally have to cut things down to get to 3 minutes, right? And 3 minutes is just like the most common. It's usually 3 minutes they give you. It can be 2 minutes. It can be even 1 minute. If you have 1 minute and you're in flow state, you have to cut down because you're ready to literally talk for 10 minutes about one question they've shown you, right? So get into flow state, and it makes the whole thing so easy, right? And you're going to get into flow state basically by seeing the question, loads of ideas in your head, write down 5, go straight into flow state, boom, answer the question, really good answer, okay? What about this? The previous strategy, you see the question, and you write down a few notes, headings. Right, okay, let's think. Okay, so where's all the passion gone, right? Where's all the in the zone, ready to go, ready to answer, yes, boom. Yeah, so I was a leader when we did this, I successfully solved this. Instead, you're thinking, okay, so I should start it you're seeing a scripting, your opening sentence. You're so I'm going to start. So the time when I was a leader was when I had a group assignment. By the end of the minute, once you've done 40 seconds of that, 40 seconds of trying to think, you're completely out of flow state. The answer's going to go, and you're going to be right, so it's like you're sort of overthinking it, right? If you want to do something challenging or whatever, you just got to go 3, 2, 1 and do it, right? Whereas if you just delay it, you're not going to do it. You have to jump straight into it. So that's why I say, first of all, for this bold strategy that I personally recommend, and if there's probably only 1% watching now because they probably got confused by what I was saying, but if you are still following along with this bit, right, I would basically say, see the question, write down 5 notes of just the direction you want to go in. That might take 10, it might take 20 seconds, right? Write down those 5 notes just so you know, and then go straight into it, because you're going to have all these ideas flowing around your head from seeing that question. Don't leave it to waste. If you wait a minute, all the thoughts will have gone, your mind's going to go blank, you're going to see the thing counting down from 10 seconds, you're going to be I have 10 seconds, I have no idea, this is so bad, I don't know what I'm going to do. You're going to start panicking, it's not going to work. But if you go straight from the ideas flowing through your head, when you see the question, you're writing down notes, straight into the question, you're going to give a really good answer, okay? So that's part 1 of this strategy. Just don't use the preparation time, okay? It sounds counterintuitive, but your answer's going to be better if you literally go from that immediate rush of information rather than let it all fizzle out. I don't know what I'm doing, right? So that's part 1. Now the second part is I want you to do the first take as if it's your final take, right? Okay, so let me just give you an analogy. This probably isn't going to seem relevant, but I'll link it back later. Okay, so high jump. You know the high jump event in athletics where they have the mat, they have the bar, athletes run up and then you have to jump over the bar. If the bar falls off, you failed the height, but if you get over it, you do it, and then it goes up and up and up and up and up, and basically who can jump the highest until they're jumping stupid distances 2.3 meters or something, right? That's the high jump, okay? And I've done high jump myself before, so I can tell you about it. So you have 3 attempts at each height, right? You have to get over the bar, so you could knock it over twice, but then if you get it over the 3rd time, it doesn't matter, you go to the next one, right? So on your first attempt at a height, right, I'm telling you this from experience right now, when you're doing high jump, your first attempt at the height, you're just there yeah, fine, whatever, okay? You're absolutely completely calm, you just go up and do the height. Let's say you fail it first time, okay? Now on your second attempt, you're going to be thinking, okay, right, probably be useful if I did this now, right? Okay, let's actually try and do this time. So it's a bit whereas the first one you were completely calm, yeah, whatever. This one you're okay, I think we probably need to be doing this, right? So it's slightly ramping up the tension slightly. Do your second one, fail that, right? On your third one, when you're lining up to go and do your jump, you're standing there okay, I need to do this. If I don't do this, I'm out. Because the 3 attempts, if you don't do it on your 3rd attempt, you're out of the competition, right? So you're standing there waiting to go up right, I've got to do this. Everything is weighing on this, right? You see that building in tension, right? The first one you don't really care. Second one you're okay, let's probably try and jump this, right? And then the third one you're I need to jump this or I'm losing the competition, okay? That's the same with the virtual interview. If you do that strategy where you use the first one as a practice and then you do the real thing on the second one, okay? Quite often they have you have 1 more attempt, so you have 2 attempts in total. the previous strategy was you practice the first one, now you know how to do a good answer, and then second attempt, right? The problem is, once you do the second attempt, which is your final attempt, it's the equivalent of doing your third jump on the high jump, right? There is pressure, okay? There is pressure on that one, because if you mess up this final attempt on the final go, there's nothing left to save you. You're just going to have to submit that answer. It's going to be a bad answer, and you're just going to have to live with it, right? Now compare that to if you do the first one as your real attempt, okay? So you go into it straight away. You do the 10 seconds of preparation and go straight into it as if it was your real attempt, right? That is basically the equivalent of your first jump on high jump. There's not going to be pressure. You're just going to be in flow state, just doing your answer, not worrying about it, not like while you're talking, also thinking in your mind, I need to not mess up. You're going to be completely present in your answer, giving a really good answer, because let's say you do mess up. Let's say you completely like stumble your words and your mind just goes blank and you like don't say anything for 20 seconds straight. It means that you still have a backup, right? So it's like, which would you rather in any situation? Would you rather have like the third and final jump at a high jump, or would you rather do it from one where you've got backups? Right? So here's what I say. I say, okay, if you do a practice the first one and then the real one the second time, your answer might be 10% better, maybe, right? In terms of like, you've practiced it through, it might be a bit better because now you know what to say. But because of the pressure, it's probably going to be like 20% worse. So like the net overall is going to be 10% worse an answer because you had the pressure of your final attempt and you weren't present in your answer. While you were giving your answer, your brain was also thinking, right, let's do this. And then like you're gonna stumble one word, and then your mind's gonna be like, oh my god, I can't do that again. Like, whereas if you do it on the first time, you're gonna be completely present in your answer. You're gonna be in flow state. You're gonna give that answer. Say you stumble on a word, doesn't matter. You just keep going, whatever. So although, okay, fine, you haven't practiced it, so maybe that will knock you down a couple of percent. But the fact that you are doing it completely in flow state, no distractions, no pressure, it basically is going to increase your answer by like 50%, right? Just because you have a backup. So if you completely mess it up, like, oh, you go 20 seconds without talking, then you use the backup, right? But in this first answer, say you do stumble a few words. To be honest, it doesn't really matter. I would say if you stumble a few words with this strategy, you just submit it anyway, because I think if you stumbled a few words in that raw, like flow state, like really passionate answer, your second attempt, you're going to stumble way more, right? Because I think your first attempt straight away from that flow state is always going to be better than your second attempt, because your second attempt, you've got the pressure, you're thinking, I have to do this. You're not in flow state because you've had to like pause and like think about whether you want to do the second one, right? So basically this is the strategy. You basically do the first one as your real one, and 9 times out of 10, you don't do a second attempt. I think in all my virtual interviews, how many did I do? Let's just say I did 10, right? 10 virtual interviews, let's say an average of 5 questions each, so that's 50 questions, I re-recorded once, right? And that doesn't mean I had 49 perfect answers. No, it means I had 49 very good answers that if I had re-recorded, they would have become good. Because I think if you do slightly bad on your first one, you're going to do even worse on the second one. So I think the one I re-recorded, I completely messed up the first thing, so I had to re-record. But if it's just a minor thing, don't, okay? So there is the strategy that, to be honest, 1% of you are going to employ. And if you do, I think you're going to stand straight up. You're going to stand out from the competition, because the recruiter's clearly going to be able to see you giving a raw, like passionate, like flow statey, really good answer, right? Compared to someone who's like, okay, so they're getting all nervous or something, or the answer just doesn't sound as like raw, unfiltered, passionate, like I won this degree apprenticeship, this is my experience, this is what we did, okay? So only use about 10 seconds preparation time and go straight into your real attempt the first time, which leaves the second as a backup. Now I just want to quickly touch on timing. You want to make sure you do the full timing. So if it's a 3-minute question, you need to be talking for 3 minutes, okay? That means like if it's a scenario that's like 1 minute setting up the scenario, 1 minute about what you did, then like 40 seconds of what the outcome was, and then the last 20 seconds like wrapping up and concluding. You want to make sure that you are using the full thing, because think about it like this. Say the question is, what are your strengths? And you have 2 candidates, right? One of them does a full 3-minute video of their strengths. This one does a 1-minute video of their strengths. Who do you think the recruiter is going to prefer? The person who has like 3 minutes worth of strength, or the person who has 1 minute worth of strength? It's going to be the 3-minute, right? So you're basically missing opportunities by talking less than you can. You basically want to give out as much information about yourself. You want to sell yourself as much as you can, and you basically do that by talking as much as you can, using the maximum amount of time. But then on the other hand, you do not want to overrun the time, like, because you can't. The moment the 3 minutes is over, or because again, I don't know, I might have mentioned this already, but it's not always 3 minutes. I'm just using 3 minutes because that's common. Like, it could be 2, it could be 1, it could be 2.5, it could be 4. But as an example, let's say it's 3 minutes. If you run over the 3 minutes, you can't, because it just stops recording and goes on to the next question or whatever. So you basically want to keep a note of the time. So you want to be looking at the time. Okay, I've got a minute left. Let's start talking about what the outcome was of this situation. Okay, I've got 20 seconds left. Let's wrap up. Okay, I've got 10 seconds left. Final sentence, right? And you want to basically make sure like you're finishing on the dot, 58, 59, like that sort of thing. And if you finish at 55, 56, that's not a problem. You can just sit there smiling. Right, but if you're finishing at like 30 seconds to go, or like a minute to go, you're gonna have to click the like stop early button, and straight away when the recruiter sees a 2-minute 59 answer versus a 1-minute 41 answer, the question's going to be asked, why didn't you have anything to say on the question that was, give me a time you worked hard? Maybe that wasn't the time you worked hard. Do you know what I mean? Use the full time. Okay, so now I'm just going to give you a few tips of how you can improve your virtual interview, okay? So the first one is, I would recommend having notes stuck up, okay? Because I think there's going to be times when you want to refer to things in your CV, or like refer to situations, and you're not always going to remember it. So just a quick one I do is I always stick up my CV like behind the camera, so while I'm answering I can quickly glance at the wall at my CV and see, right, DV, gold, we did this, and then include in my answer. So I think that's a lot better, because it sort of helps you with ideas. Even if you don't use it during your actual answer, you can use it in the preparation time. Just see the question, when have you worked as a team? Okay, look at my CV, team, okay, I worked here as a team, it's on my CV, let me talk about it. So that's a good strategy there, is to like stick on the wall with blue tack your CV, or just like general notes about yourself on the wall, so that you can refer to. And that's like one of the benefits of like a virtual, an interview that's not in person, because obviously when you're in person, you can't just like necessarily, I mean, to be honest, you probably could, but you can't necessarily have like loads of notes to refer to. But when you're at home, you can put up as many notes as you want to refer to on the wall behind the camera. Okay, so this next tip I actually think is the number one tip for virtual interviews, and that is looking at the camera. Okay, direct eye contact with the camera. I want you to maintain this throughout all of your answers, okay? Because a lot of what people do is they end up like seeing themselves on the screen. They just like make eye contact with themselves on the screen, so they're looking slightly down like this. So you might be able to notice it on this video that I am looking slightly down compared to when I'm doing it now, doing actual eye contact. But like, you're probably thinking like, why is that relevant? Because you're still saying the same things. Like, you're giving a good answer, you're saying about your experiences, you're still saying the same thing regardless of whether you're looking at the camera or you're like slightly not looking at the camera. But it's not really a conscious thing. It's, to be honest, it's not like the recruiter's gonna like look at your screen and be like, he's not looking at the camera, let's not hire him. Or he looked at the camera for 4 minutes straight, let's hire him. It's not gonna be a conscious thing like that. It's gonna be subconscious, right? Because in your brains, there's like psychological circuits that have been like wired in there for thousands of years because like evolution and stuff. A lack of eye contact basically signals deception. So even if it's not something they consciously notice, their subconscious brain is going to notice when you're like not looking at the camera and sort of just averting your gaze like this. And it's basically going to signal to them deception. Like, again, this is all subconscious, this isn't conscious stuff. They're not looking at you and be like, they're deceiving me right now. No, it's all subconscious things. And basically what it's going to result in is, because their brain is noticing it, it's just going to mean they sort of are less likely to pick you. Like, genuinely, it's like they won't even be able to explain it. If you give them one candidate who looked at the camera the whole time, and then someone who looks slightly down, right? They're just going to choose this one. If they have the same answer, they're going to choose this one. They're not even going to know why, but it's like subconsciously, their like brain is like preferring this one because this is like a real human being, basically. Like, humans we're not used to all this virtual stuff. We're used to that's how our brains are wired, for like real social interactions where you look each other in the eye. So naturally the brain of the recruiter is going to prefer this one than the person who's like looking down slightly like this. Like obviously I'm exaggerating now, it's not going to be as bad as this, but even when it's like a slight difference from here just to there, they're subconsciously going to notice that, and it's going to end up with them slightly less liking you and more liking this person, and basically making them more likely to choose this person. So it's a small thing, but just looking at the camera is going to improve it by like 10%. So you can, I've seen people put like post-it notes on their laptop or whatever, like pointing to the webcam, look here. You basically want to look at that the whole time. Obviously you're going to have to like glance down to things like the timer or like your notes on the wall or your notes down there, but that's what it is, glances. You don't want to be like staring at yourself on the screen slightly below for the whole time. So keep looking at the camera basically, and it can improve your chances by like 10-20%. Okay, I've got a similar one that probably seems like, why is this relevant? And that's lighting. Again, if you have two people, one has bad lighting, one has good lighting, and they say exactly the same things, like the exact same answers are coming out, you'd think, okay, they'd have an equal chance in the assessment, in the virtual interview, because they're saying the same things. That's what they're assessing. But with this and that eye contact thing, you've got to understand there's human error, right? If it was like AI or something that was purely just assessing how you're answering the questions, then maybe it might be equal. But there's human error, and that's where the subconscious stuff comes in, right? Subconsciously, the person is going to look at the person with good lighting, and they're just going to prefer that person to the person with bad lighting. That's just how it is. Like, it sort of makes sense when you think about it. Like subconsciously, the person is going to prefer someone who's got like good, nice lighting that you can see them properly, compared to someone who's in some like dark room that looks like a dungeon or something, right? It's sort of, it makes sense when you think about it, that the human is going to prefer the one that looks like the lighting's all good than the one that's bad. And it's the same with eye contact. Although the answers are the same, the human error there is basically going to make the recruiter prefer the one who's given eye contact than that. So that's the reason why all these like tiny tips are going to help you by 10 or 20%, because of the human error of the recruiter. So if you can like optimize like the psychology of the recruiter, you're going to increase your chances. You could like use all of these and get up to like 50% increased chances. So lighting, if it's in daytime, you want to basically get in front of a window. You can have really good natural light. Natural light's the best thing you can do. But to be honest, with a lot of virtual interviews, you're going to have to do them in the evenings. You're not really going to be doing them during day. So you're not going to have the benefit of natural light. And it's in winter, so like you've got no chance. Most important thing is basically you want to have foreground lighting rather than background lighting. Okay, so you, instead of just a light bulb in your bedroom, like at the back, which sort of like gives you like a pale yellow, like you're tiny bit lit, like orange or something. You want basically a lamp in front of you, because that's actually going to light you properly rather than a light bulb behind you. So basically, if you're doing it at night, make sure you get a lamp in front of you, and that's going to make your lighting look better. And it's like if you have 9 people who have really dark lighting and then one person who's got really good lighting, psychologically they're going to be more inclined to the person with good lighting. That's just how it is, right? You can't change that. You can't change that system, so you might as well just utilize it and give yourself better lighting. Now the final tip I want to give you is about attire and dress code, and you want to be smart. Okay, that's basically what I'm trying to say here. You're better to overdress than underdress, because if you overdress, you stand out in a good way. If you underdress, you stand out in a bad way, right? So I can't really give any advice for girls here, because I don't know what you wear that's smart. Just make sure it's smart, right? But for boys, this means at a minimum, okay, it needs to be like a shirt, like a white shirt, buttoned up collared shirt or whatever, and a suit jacket, okay? That is absolute minimum to be doing virtual interviews and assessment centres, right? Because that is like smart casual these days. That's a lot of like, that's what people wear. That's the dress code in offices really these days, is minimum like white shirt and a jacket, smart casual, okay? And that basically means no like sweatshirts over your shirt or anything like that. Like no jumpers, like the kind of jumpers you'd get told off at school for wearing over your shirt or something, okay? Just the white shirt and then a jacket over the top. And to be honest, I would say on top of this, wear a tie, okay? Like this isn't like mandatory or anything, but I would just say, I think wearing a tie helps you stand out in a good way. Like if there's 10 people, 9 of them don't have ties and you have a tie, you're going to stick out in the recruiter's mind. And I think with this whole thing, sticking out in the recruiter's mind is important. Because they'll have watched like 40 videos, 40 virtual interview videos, and they've been told you need to do this down to 10, right? So if you're completely forgettable, she's going to forget about you and not put you in the 10. Whereas if she sees you, oh, he was wearing a tie, actually, I remember him, his answers were good, put you in there. Because it's not like, oh, your answers are better when you have a tie. No, but it's like you're more likely to be remembered, so she'll think of you, and then she'll remember your answers are good, and then do that. Compared to the person who's just in forgettable dress code like everyone else, just not going to remember to put him in. And it's the same with the other tips. Like, oh, this guy actually had really good lighting. I could see his face properly. Let me think of his answers. Oh yeah, his answers were really good as well. Let's do. It basically gives you a reason for the recruiter to think about you and think about putting you in. Whereas if you're completely forgettable, then they're not going to remember to put you in the 10. They're going to have put 10. By the time they get to you, the 10 spaces will already be full, right? So you basically want to be like the first 3 that the recruiter thinks of to put into the successful category. Like, oh, this guy was giving me like eye contact the whole time. I thought that was really engaging. Let me just think about his answers. Oh yeah, he was the one who gave the really good answer about gold DOV. Boom, put it in, right? So with all these tips, it basically helps you stand out. So good eye contact, right? Good dress code, good lighting, right? Those tips are going to help you stand out, which means the recruiter remembers you, which is the really important thing to keep in mind. This recruiter is going through dozens and dozens of videos, and she has 5 places to put people in. So if you're dressed like everyone else, you're in a dark room, you're like not even looking at the camera like that, she's either going to remember you for the wrong reasons, she's going to like remember you straight away and be like, yeah, no chance, mate. Or just not going to remember you at all. By the time she gets around to you, oh, the spaces are already full, that's unfortunate. Okay? Like a lot of my videos, this has been quite a detailed video going a lot into the strategy. Basically, I think just a raw video like this, going into every single nuance of the strategy, is basically the best way I can help you guys. Like, I've been thinking about it. I could just do like a 10-minute video that gives you like 5 tips and explains it like really easily and succinctly. But I think that wouldn't give a lot of value. Whereas if I just give you a long, like sort of unfiltered video like this, I think I could just give you more value. So although, yeah, this video is longer, it's more complicated, I'm explaining like weird things to do with like the psychology of humans and like that strategy of like flow state. It's all a bit weird, but I think that gives you the best value. So if you've made it to the end of this video, there's probably like the viewer retention at this point is gonna be like 1%. That's absolutely no problem, because it means I'm actually helping the people who actually care about getting whatever it is, their apprenticeship or graduate schemes. So if you made it this far to the video, well done. I think you've basically got a really good chance in the virtual interviews, because 99% of people have clicked off. If this video has given you value, like I really hope it has, because I've basically unloaded every single tiny bit of information I can give you about the virtual interview, then I'd appreciate it if you leave a like. Stay subscribed to the channel for future full guides I'm going to be bringing out. Have a great rest of your day. Thanks very much.